Hi, my name is Quyen from HelpAge International. Welcome to my presentation relating to climate change, older people, especially older farmers, and biochar. My presentation has 4 parts. Part 1 is a quick overview of climate change. Part 2 is on older peoples and biochar. Part 3 is a video on older people making biochar. And Part 4 is the Q&A sections. Global warming or climate change. Greenhouse gas like carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide trap heat from the sun, which make the earth warmer. With the rise in greenhouse gases, especially carbon dioxide or CO2, our earth will continue to get warmer and warmer. So, to combat climate change, we need to know more about CO2 or carbon. Carbon is found in the atmosphere, vegetation, ocean, soil, rocks, fossil fuel, and under the permafrost. Here, permafrost is highlighted red because global warming is starting to melt the permafrost, which can release hundreds of gigatons of dangerous greenhouse gases. It would be game over for all of us. Next, I would like to go over some key climate change vocabulary. First is carbon sink. Carbon sink captures and releases carbon. These are the 3 main carbon sinks. First, vegetation, the soil, and finally, large body of water like the seas and oceans. The next word is carbon flux. Carbon flux is the difference between the carbon captures and release amount. For hundreds of thousands of years, this has been close to zero, which is called the carbon balance. And all of this is called the carbon cycle. This is a graph showing the historical level of CO2 in the atmosphere in parts per million. We have not seen this level of CO2 in the atmosphere for the past 850,000 years until now. Currently, it has crossed 400 million parts per million and will continue to rise. So, what is the cause of this rise in CO2 level and the carbon cycle imbalance? First, we are burning large amounts of fossil fuel, which is releasing billions of tons of CO2 in the atmosphere per year. Second, we have lost 50% of the forest cover and widespread burning of biomass, which release not just CO2 but also very harmful smoke. We have also lost 50% of our topsoil and large tract of our seas and oceans are polluted. All of these have caused our carbon flux to be negative. Our carbon sinks are capturing less than what we are releasing. Finally, the release of greenhouse gas from the melting of the permafrost. Unfortunately, our carbon footprint is projected to continue to increase, mostly due to the following 3 reasons. 1. Population growth. We will reach 8 billion by 2023 and to 9 billion by 2037. Second, our GDP is expected to continue to grow, which will lead to high consumption and increase in emission of greenhouse gases. And third, lastly, rapid urbanization. 56% of the world population is currently living in urban areas and will increase to 69% by 2050. Our annual carbon footprint is 40 billion tons of CO2 per year. Therefore, it is very important for us to find a way to offset this amount. So, what action can we take to reduce climate change or global warming? To help you to decide what action to take and what would be their impact, we have this chart. Not all action has the same or equal impact. This is a chart showing the annual CO2 emission saving by activities. For example, if you change to eat a plant-based diet, you can save this much per year. If you change to eat only or mostly local food, you would save this much. However, if you decide to be a full-time biochar maker, you can reasonably save 1,000 tons of CO2 annually. Yes, this is a big wow. If we look at the bigger scale, to combat climate change or global warming problem, we need to select the right solution for the right scale of our problem. If our global warming problem is this size, our plan A, which for the last 30 years has been to reduce, reuse, and recycle, would be the perfect intervention. Plan B would not stop global warming but will slow it down. However, if our global warming problem is bigger, Plan A would not be enough. We would need to add Plan B, which focuses on being carbon neutral, such as moving away from using fossil fuel to renewable energy like solar, hydro, water, and bio. However, if our global warming problem is very large, it is gigantic like the size of Godzilla, then Plan A and B is not enough. We would need to add Plan C, which is carbon negative. To help us have a clearer picture, this is a graph showing the projected global CO2 emission and the rise in global temperature by various intervention plans. If we continue with only Plan A, global temperature is projected to rise above 2.5 by 2100. If we implement both A and B, global temperature will increase by 1.5 to 2.5 by 2100. However, if we implement Plan A, B, and C, we can stop and even reverse global temperatures. Part 2, Older People and Biochar. To understand why biochar is so important in reducing global warming, we need to go back to the carbon cycle. CO2 is in the atmosphere. Trees and vegetation, when it's growing, capture the CO2, but when it is used or burnt, the CO2 is released back into the atmosphere as well as other harmful air pollution. This carbon cycle is considered carbon neutral. However, if we add biochar to the carbon cycle, the CO2 is captured and then is converted to biochar. Converting biomass to biochar will release around 30% of the CO2 back into the atmosphere, but will store long-term 70% inside biochar. This is considered carbon negative. So, why should people support our biochar making scheme? First of all, our biochar scheme method is the easiest, fastest, and most cost-effective way to remove and store carbon, as well as to help reduce air pollution, which are mostly caused from burning biomass waste. Second, using biochar will improve soil health and vegetation growth, which will enable greater and additional captures and storage of CO2. Third, using biochar will increase food production while using less water and fertilizer. Fourth, our biochar scheme will create millions of jobs to grow and harvest biomass, make biochar and biochar products, and lastly, biochar can also be made into many health and environmentally friendly products which are considered carbon neutral. Biochar is marketable both locally and internationally. Here is the flowchart of our vegetation and biochar scheme. First, farmers grow the crop. They harvest the crop and gather what they need. They then take the biomass waste and convert it to biochar in 1 to 2 hours. The biochar is then used to make soil enhancers and other health and environmentally friendly products. Using biochar soil enhancer will increase crop production. With each cycle, you would be able to produce more food, use less water and fertilizer, and produce more and more biochar. There will be less and less CO2 and air pollution in the atmosphere. This is a big win for the farmer, win for the country, and a win for the planet. There are many ways to make biochar. However, the one that we are promoting is by far the fastest and easiest method to learn, set up, and do. It requires the lowest investment, does not require infrastructure like roads, electricity, buildings, or running water. It is very mobile and easy to transport anywhere in the communities. You can move it to the biomass waste. It is designed for poor and small, rural and semi-urban communities. It can also bring multiple benefits such as reversing climate change and dramatically reducing air pollution. The most common question we receive relating to our biochar schemes are there enough biomass? Will it cause deforestation? Our response are, we only need to convert 2% of the biomass waste that are produced annually by the farm into biochar to get 40 million tons of biochar. This is a typical 1,000 US dollar village-sized biochar making setup. It can make 1 to 2 tons of biochar per day, or equal to capturing and storing 3 to 5 tons of CO2 per day. This is a simple diagram of our biochar making scheme. Daily, convert 3.3 tons of biomass into 1 ton of biochar, which contains 0.8 tons of carbon, or equal to 2.88 tons of CO2 per day, or 1,050 tons of CO2 per year. If we scaled it up to 40 million villages, we would have the capacity to store 42 billion tons of CO2 per year, which is greater than the current carbon footprints of 40 billion tons of CO2 per year we are currently emitting. Going back to the 1,000 ton per year, what does that mean? To help you have a better understanding of biochar scheme impact, one village scale biochar making site can offset carbon footprints of 200 people, or can offset plastic bag carbon footprint of 121,000 households. So what would it take to scale it up globally? Let's do the math. There are 570 million farms in the world. 97% of the farms are small-scale farms, having less than 10 acres of land. Most of the farmers are also 50 years plus, and many are underemployed. These farms annually capture, when they are farming, billions of tons of CO2. However, the CO2 and harmful smoke are quickly released back into the atmosphere when it is burnt. If 8% of the farm, the 40 million farms, make biochar, they can capture and store more than 40 billion tons of CO2 per year with just 2% of the current available biomass. In addition, using biochar in farming will also improve soil health, increase vegetation growth, which will capture and store another 10 billion tons of CO2. Capturing and storing 40 billion tons of CO2 will cost around 800 billion US dollar, which costs 10 times less than the second best option, like direct capture option. Government can support this by providing subsidies, grants, carbon credit, or loan. For example, carbon credit scheme of 20 US dollar per ton of CO2. This can provide employment to at least 100 to 200 million rural farmers. Can be attractive incentive for young generation to become or remain future farmers. Here are some strong evidence of the long-term impact of biochar. Terra petra, or black earth, is a fertile man-made soil found in the Amazon basin. It was made by Amazon Indian hundreds and thousands of years ago to improve infertile Amazon jungle soil. Unlike traditional compost, terra petra soil can remain fertile for hundreds and thousands of years. This is an example of using biochar to reclaim degraded land. This is a photo of a 100-year-old mine in Colorado, which has lost all of its topsoil and is contaminated with heavy metal. After 1 year of applying biochar, the result can clearly be seen. It normally takes Mother Nature around 1,000 years to make 1 inch of topsoil. Biochar can do this in a few years. Here you can see the result of plant growth with and without biochar. Growth of plant with biochar is much faster than plants without biochar. conclusion and recommendation. There is a saying, solution is often found within the problem. Small-scale farmers are often blamed for being the main cause of climate change and air pollution. In fact, they can be the solution to the problem. Small-scale farmers are capturing billions of tons of carbon by growing crop annually. However, they quickly release it when they burn it. Why? Because they do not have any other option. With biochar, instead of burning, they can convert it into biochar to increase food and income security, reversing global warming and reducing air pollution. Offsetting 40 billion tons of CO2 is very doable with biochar. The number and percentage of older people and their older people association is rapidly growing. In the Asia and Pacific region alone, there are more than 700,000 older people associations with hundreds of millions of members. If they are invested, they can scale up biochar awareness, production, and usage up to national, regional, and global scale. $1,000 per village scale biochar site is very affordable. Increased biochar production and usage will reverse climate change and global warming, reduce air pollution, improve food and income security, and help countries to reach many of its SDG targets. Now, part 3, biochar making video.
ของโลกปัจจุบันที่ร้อนขึ้นเกิดจากการปล่อยคาร์บอนของมนุษย์เพราะว่าถ่านไบโอชาร์จะเป็นตัวที่จะช่วยดูดซับคาร์บอนในอากาศและก็ดูดซับสารพิษรอบตัวเรา
Làm than sinh học rất dễ và nhanh, không tốn nhiều kinh phí. Than sinh học có lợi cho môi trường, vật nuôi và cải thiện đất bạc màu. Tôi mong rằng tổ chức 2, người cao tuổi các cấp, chính quyền các cấp nhân rộng mô hình này trên toàn quốc và chúng tôi được hưởng lợi.
Thank you.